G'day YouTube, we're here for another build rundown. Sitting behind me is an XT500 from 1976. This thing showed up to us in boxes and has been given the full PBM treatment. The last one of these we put out, you guys went absolutely mental for, so I'm stoked to get into this one. I'm Tom Gilroy and you're in the Purpose Built Moto garage. Now we got flooded with feedback and comments on the last XT500 that we bought out with the polished tank and tail, the red and white sort of color scheme. A lot of people are saying that Yamaha needs to bring these things back, and I couldn't agree more. It's a super fun bike and everyone just loves the simplicity of an XT500. Now Clint, our rider, has had a Purpose Built Moto custom built for him before. You'll remember from a little while ago, the DT400 that we built for him in a very similar style. That bike was the sort of catalyst of this style that's now grown into these sort of like VMX inspired scramblers that we're building. So deservedly so, Clint's decided to get himself another bike for the shed. Now this bike was kicked off at another shop. It was torn down, had a bunch of parts ceramic coated and powder coated before it came into us. That was happening while we were finishing up Clint's other bike. But when it landed to us, the first job was to get into the engine and completely rebuild it. Now there's a long list of upgrades that this engine's been given, so I'll run you through them all now. We've got a big bore kit, hot cams, ported and polished heads. It's got the oversized valves on the intake and exhaust, as well as a high performance clutch. We've upgraded to a Mikuni pumper carb. We're using a TM40, I believe, running with a DNA filter that's tucked in behind the side covers here. We've also upgraded the ignition to a 12-volt system with a new CDI because the 76 models originally ran on points. And another really key piece of this project that we're excited to share. On this side, you'll see an electric start. Now, I don't care who you are or how tough you reckon you are, sometimes kicking a bike sucks. This XT start kit, I was a little bit apprehensive of at the start, but as you'll see when I go to hit the button on this thing, it works so incredibly. You would sort of be forgiven for thinking it's a factory part. It does stick out a little bit further on this side and obviously adds a little bit of weight to the bike, but the ease that this thing gives you when riding this thing around is sort of worth it in my opinion. It's a French kit. I'm pretty sure that the company is just called XT Start, and they make a lot of these sort of single cylinder bolt-on starters. Like I said, super impressed with the kit. It sort of comes with everything. The one thing that it wasn't supplied with was a rechargeable battery. So obviously this is supposed to be fit on a bike with a 6-volt system. We've upgraded it to a 12-volt. But the kit that comes with it just has a battery that might give you 10 or 15 starts, and then you're supposed to, when you finish riding, plug it into a wall outlet and recharge the battery. So what we've done is hooked up the new 12-volt conversion to a rechargeable battery under the seat that powers the starter motor. So for all intents and purposes, this system will work as if you bought it off the showroom floor. So the 12-volt upgrade and ignition charges the battery that runs the starter motor. So it's sort of, you know, our way of trying to take the hassle out of it, because you don't want to forget to not plug it in and then you got a flat battery and you got to kickstart it. I mean, you do have the option of having a Kickstarter there, but the way that we try to do these things is, you know, make them as easy as possible and as user-friendly as possible. So that's what we've done, and you know, time will tell whether we've done it right, but during our test rides and all that stuff, this thing works super, super well. So once the engine build was finished, we dropped the donk back in the frame and started fabrication. Now on this project, it came with the wheels rebuilt, and we had a USD front end that was given to us. All we had to do was fit it up with the correct spacers and bearings and have it lowered slightly by Costanzo racing tunes, and then chuck a set of YSS custom shocks on the back. So we hit our mates up down at Suspensions R Us in Melbourne. They sorted us out the correct length shock with the right spring rate for our rider Clint, and then we got to work on fabricating for the bike. Our video sponsor today, guys, is Makita. They've been supporting Purpose Built Moto for the longest time, and a lot of their tools are what make these builds possible. We use a heap of their 18-volt cordless stuff, and for the more heavy-duty gear, we're using their 40-volt stuff now as well. Their corded tools are also strewn through the workshop on any given day. I've been relying on Makita tools since I was an apprentice Sparky and brought with them right up to today. So shout out to those guys for jumping on and supporting today's video. First order of business was the sheet metal on the front end. We've got a custom sheet metal set of fork shrouds here. We've got a custom front fender and of course our handmade headlight nacelle here as well. This houses our 4.5-inch headlight and has a set of hollow tip indicators tucked neatly in behind there, keeping it street legal but also keeping it nice and clean. Now the front fender here, we've decided to add a little rib along the edge of this fender just to match in with the factory XT500 fender that we've modified and sort of upgraded on the rear, which I'll run you through next. So on the tail end, Clint gave us a really nice factory XT rear guard. So these are obviously like steel pressed. They've got a bunch of gusseting underneath, but they are quite long. So what we've done is sort of push that forward up underneath the seat, modified it slightly so we can retain the factory mounts. We've also kicked up the tail hoop just a little bit to give it more of a flow-on effect from the work that we've done on the front and the difference in the suspension that we've created. Other modifications on this rear guard, apart from shortening it, we've got the exhaust hanger sort of all tied in with the fastening bolts. And then we've also used our hollow tip LED indicators on the rear here. And then we've taken to the rear lip on this fender and Frenched in a nice strip LED tail light. I'll turn that on now so you guys can check it out in a nice bit of detail. So underneath the fender, we've got a tail tidy mounted and braced. We learnt a pretty hard lesson on our last XT. We'd welded on our tail tidy, but because these bikes just shake themselves to pieces, you got to put a really good bit of bracing under here. So we had our last XT on the dyno up at Dynamite Moto, and this rattled loose and actually cracked on one of the welds. So whenever we're doing these single cylinders now, we're making sure we're bracing these to make sure they're extra strong and they're going to go that distance that we need them to. The brake light, we actually have a blog on how to do this, guys. If you're looking to properly French in an LED strip light, we've got a bunch of information on how to do that. We've sort of figured out the best way that we can to do it, and we're happy to share that information with you. So if you're at home tinkering in your garage, you want something that looks like that, I'll drop a link in our video description so you can go check that one out. So coming up the side of the bike, I really love the factory XT side covers. We used them on our last bike. They worked out ultra well. So we've gone with a set of those again and then just sort of styled it in, custom painted it to suit the rest of the bike. But this is sort of something that we didn't really modify here. There's been a few changes made in behind this. Obviously we've got a new battery box, a bit of an air filter setup and some heat shielding because the exhaust runs nice and close in behind this one. But on this section of the bike, it's reasonably stock standard. For me, I think the XT design really nailed it when it came to these side covers. The way that they scallop out around the rear shock and that little detail in the number plate, super nice. So I think if I was going to make anything, it wouldn't be that cool. So I just decided to not try and improve on perfection with that one. A really small minor detail on the tank. When you're doing these front end conversions, the offset on a new front end is a lot tighter. So back in the day, your offset might have been 35, 40 or 50 mil on some of these bikes. So you have a lot more room in the turning circle. When you put a modern front end on it, that offset comes right back. And I mean, just looking at this now, I'd probably guess that this has maybe 15 or 20 mil offset. So that means if you put one of these front ends on and you don't modify your tank or do something about it, your turning circle is from about here to about there, and that sucks. So what we do is we either move these tanks back slightly, or you can put a scalloped out tank detail so you can get that nice turning circle. That's a pretty good setup now that we've done it a few times to sort of work through the issues with it, and we can get it done pretty easily. And it doesn't inhibit the style of the tank too much either, which is something that you really got to watch out for when you start cutting into the front of these old motocross tanks. On the handlebars, we got nothing but the best. So we have our Daytona dash tucked in nicely here with a mini key switch that runs to a little relay that's under the seat, a set of Pro Taper bars. We've got Pro Taper levers and a Pro Taper clutch perch that we've modified to have the decompression lever nicely mounted underneath. Purpose Built Moto 3-button switches on either side to give you all that, all your lighting control, start, stop, horn, headlight, a nice domino throttle, and then of course our Scrambler bar end mirrors. So these Scrambler mirrors have been a product we've been using for a while now. Just recently released the bar end mounting kit. So you'll see on a lot of our other custom bikes, we use the lever pivot to either mount them underneath the lever or on top. But just in the interest of adding another option for you guys at home to mount these things up, we've developed this bar end kit, super solid bit of gear. You know, if you've been around PBM for a long time and read our old blogs, you know, I always complained about the way that bar end mirrors were mounted. They were always so shit. They just never really got it right. Use a bit of rubber hose, and nut and bolt, and it tightens up on the inside. It's just dog shit. So we've developed this to work properly. It's a bit more effort to install, but you know they're not going to fall off. Now from the handlebar switches, everything runs back nice and neatly under our seat to our black box module. When I was wiring this bike, I've actually taken the time to put together a tutorial to show you guys exactly how to link up one of these systems on your own bike. So I've run you through end to end on the entire wiring setup that I've done on this bike. So you can go through, figure out what's needed on the black box to the switches and apply that to your own build at home. Final details rounding out this project, guys. The 2118 Excel rim setup. So this, you know, God bless Clint, he really loves to keep his Scramblers really motocross style. So our other stuff, it's got 19-inch front wheels, and while it works a lot better, the looks aesthetics wise, I definitely prefer this setup. It just gives it that really raw sort of motocross feel to it. So 21 here, 18 on the rear. We're running a set of Dunlop D606 tires. These are street legal knobbies. Not great to ride on, I'll be honest, on the bitumen, but they do look the part and they feel great in the dirt. Final bit was our Stain Tune exhaust. So we've repurposed a Stain Tune muffler. I think that was originally fitted up to an XR600. That's what it's come off. We've shortened the muffler up a little bit, redone the mounts to suit our purposes, and then obviously custom built our header, also including an FMF power bump on the header there. So this setup, I've talked about it before. They're built for an anti-reversion device on your muffler. We use them on our big single cylinders because it makes them sound a lot better. And from what I can tell, the tuning and stuff isn't too much affected either negatively or positively. So I won't speak to the actual science behind the performance about that, but it definitely, I can 100% say, makes these bikes sound a lot better. Now, when it came to the paint, Clint was pretty adamant that he wanted this one in that sort of vintage Yamaha yellow style, and I couldn't agree more. It sort of suits this project perfectly. It was from that style and era, but they generally used it on more motocross bikes. So we've taken the black and yellow color scheme, used the Yamaha speed block, and then just styled it out to fit the bike. Chucked a few nice little Purpose Built Moto logos on it because I want everyone to know that this thing came from this shop. And then away we went to Justin. Justin's knocked the paint job out of the park from Pop Bang Classics as per usual. And while that was happening, Jamison from Timeless Auto Trim has done us up a super nice and really cleanly designed gripper seat. I'm about to push the button and start this thing up, which is something that you can't often say about an XT500. So enjoy the sounds of a nice electric start on an XT500 for one. Let me just sort this out. I'm going to take this bike out for a quick test ride, guys. Chuck the GoPro on so you can enjoy that. Make sure you let us know what you think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next bike build. So much easier than kicking it, eh?